This is One on One. We are joined by Dale Russakoff, who is the author of a compelling book. It is called The Prize: Who's in Charge of America's Schools? And we are here at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
What a compelling title for this book, The Prize. What does the prize mean?
Well, the prize, it means that it actually refers to the Newark Public Schools budget. It doesn't refer to the $100 million from Mark Zuckerberg. It refers to the $1 billion that Newark spends every year on its public schools. And it's always been a contentious prize for the politicians and the bosses and the unions, and everybody wants to have a piece of it.
Why don't we put things in perspective? In 2010, there was a very big announcement on Oprah.
Yes.
And you watched Oprah for the first time. You just told me that.
Yeah.
You watched it, and Mark Zuckerberg, together with Cory Booker, Oprah, and Chris Christie, Governor Christie, announced this $100 million pledge, contribution to the Newark Public Schools, which would be matched with another $100 million of private money. That's $200 million to the Newark Public Schools that would transform education forever in the Newark Public Schools.
Right.
You spend the next 4.5 years looking at this transformation, and you come up with?
Well, it wasn't transformed. I actually thought that it would be substantially transformed, maybe not miraculously, which was the way they were describing it. But what happened was they did expand the charter schools. They doubled the number of students in charter schools in Newark. And in Newark, as you know, charter schools outperform district schools. The students do much better in charter schools. So that is a very positive change. But the district schools, where 60% of the students go, were not transformed. And in many ways, the children are doing worse on the state test scores in kindergarten through 8th grade. So there's been a lot of stress and upheaval in the district schools in the transformation, and that wasn't really, I don't think they foresaw what was going to happen to the district schools.
We sat down and we spoke to Chris Cerf, who was the education commissioner in the state of New Jersey, and then actually came into Newark. As we do this program, he is actually running the Newark Public Schools. He is the state-appointed head superintendent of the Newark Public Schools after Cammie Anderson left as superintendent of the Newark Public Schools. We actually talked to Chris Cerf, and he said that by any reasonable standard, that any reasonable person would say, there's been significant improvement in the Newark Public Schools, and not simply in the charter schools. In full disclosure, I don't hold any position at the Robert Treat Academy, but my father, Steve Adebato Sr., started the Robert Treat Academy and has been very involved in the charter school movement. He's not actively involved at this point, but my family's still involved. And you write about him and his efforts and involved in, he's mentioned in the book, I'll just say that. But the point here is about Chris Cerf. He says, you gotta be kidding me. Public schools are much better, you say.
Well, I think that the changes that were made in the management of the schools were real improvements. But if you look at the student test scores in K through 8, they're lower than they were 5 years ago. And I don't understand, why, but that is a fact. And, people who are so focused on accountability, they've always talked about test scores, and that's the facts, is that the kids in
test scores, excuse me for interrupting, Dale. Test scores were the primary methodology that you used to measure this?
No, that was the methodology they used to look at student success, was test scores. And so I'm saying that the district schools did not improve. And if you go into the district schools, you see the stress that they're under because there have been, so many consolidations and thousands of kids have moved around, and there have been cuts in support services. There are fewer social workers and counselors, and the kids' problems are still as great as they were in the past. So I saw district schools that actually, with some of the reforms that Cammie Anderson put in, were starting to really improve. They were getting traction. There was a better school culture, more buy-in among teachers and parents. Well, they were overwhelmed by the needs of the kids and the lack of the support services to deal with them.
Yeah, but the $100/200 million that was in place, that had to help.
The $100 to $200 million was for the systems change at the top of the school district. It wasn't for the classroom. In fact, there was an email that went through Cory Booker's office when they were
Mayor
negotiating.
Cory Booker at the time.
When he was
now
the mayor.
U.S. Senator Cory Booker.
Exactly.
Ras Baraka is not a major figure here. I just want to be clear, correct?
Well, he was a major figure in the book, but
Because he was the principal at Central
and
High School
he
and a
was
member of the
elected
city
mayor.
council.
Yes, and because he was elected mayor,
Right.
as this uprising against
Yes.
the reform plan went through. But
No, what you were saying was about how the dollars were being spent and what it was not going to be spent on.
Yeah, and the email that was that went between Cory Booker's office and Mark Zuckerberg's office said MZ's money is not going to the classroom. It was going to go to expand charter schools and to do systems changes at the management level, changing the teacher's contract and so forth, but not into the classroom, because they felt that to reform the system, you would spend money trying to reform these systems, and those systems changes would then be in place. But if you put money into the classroom, when the funds ran out, there would no longer be any money there, and it wouldn't be lasting
Does
change.
that make sense from your perspective?
Well, I can see why you wouldn't want to put philanthropic money into the classroom, because it's time limited, and so you're going to be putting money in, and then it's not going to be there, and the changes. But I would have thought that they would have spent more time trying to figure out how to get money out of the central office of the Newark School District into the school buildings and into the classrooms. It's something Chris Cerf has said he agrees is a priority.
How would you describe then Mayor Cory Booker's role in all this? Did he do well? Because he was a key player. As I read the book, it was clear that Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook really became enamored with Cory Booker, and that was a big part of why he did this.
Right.
Rate Cory Booker in this.
Well, I think that Zuckerberg thought that Cory Booker was kind of an urban Superman. I think he'd been really wowed by the Brick City show, which showed Booker fighting crime.
The reality show.
Yes, and Booker making great strides against crime in Newark, but he wasn't up on the latest news in Newark, which at the time showed that crime had gone back up significantly. So I think he really thought that Cory Booker, when he said we're going to transform the Newark schools, could almost wave a wand and make it happen. And that wasn't something that Cory Booker was capable of doing.
Ms. McClain actually, as I remember that interview, said that students and their families have benefited from, quote, every dollar of that Facebook money, you say?
Students have benefited from every dollar?
That's right. And their families. Virtually every dollar.
I guess I haven't seen those results.
That's not what your research showed.
No, I think a lot of the money went into things that didn't reach the classroom and didn't reach the students' lives. Well, there was $21 million spent on consulting firms who were responsible for building these new systems and the systems changes, the new teachers' evaluation system, the new contract, the new data system, the new enrollment system, all of these things that, for which they spent a lot of money on consultants that perhaps could have been spent elsewhere. Now, some of the consultants did excellent work. It wasn't like it was just all, thrown away into a pot or something.
Were any new schools built?
There were new charter schools that were opened, and there were new schools. There was a Bard Early College High School.
That matters?
Of course it matters. But when you said every dollar spent reached the children and helped the children, I don't think that the facts can hold up to that.
Talk about the charter school thing. Do you believe that, well, some charter schools have done well and some have not? Clearly, some have not.
Right.
Do you believe that, and Ras Baraka sat here, and he also, in our interview at the NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, said, look, ultimately the success of the children of the Newark Public Schools has to be with the regular public schools, because you can never put enough kids in our charter schools. Is that true?
Well, I don't know that it is true anymore, because it looks as if the KIPP New Jersey schools expand as they plan to, they'll have 50% of the students.
Is that a problem from your perspective?
No.
It's not?
I don't think
that many kids would be in non-traditional public schools?
Not if they're being served well. I think the issue is, like, if you have 50%, that's a lot of kids who are still in the district schools. And as you move kids into charter schools, there's a responsibility to sort of address the whole ecosystem and not just think that, well, because we've got 50% of kids in charter schools, we've done a great thing. Because the problem is that nobody's ever seemed to figure out, how do you grow the charter sector and still make sure that the children in the district schools are thriving? And that hasn't been happening in this district, and nobody's figured that out anywhere in the country.
Your background as a journalist, Washington Post?
Yes.
How many years?
28.
What kind of reaction have you gotten to this book?
I've gotten, I've been amazed at the reaction. It's been, it seems to be continuing interest, a lot of buzz. And I've been also really encouraged that, people on all sides of the education debate think there's something valuable to read in it.
4.5 years. Everyone takes, excuse me, whatever they choose to take out of a book. And I find it, I will tell you, compelling. This is the book. It's called The Prize, Who's in Charge of America's Schools? And while this is about Newark, it could be Chicago, Philadelphia, Detroit, Atlantic City, Trenton, anywhere, any urban school system, they all face extraordinary challenges. What's the biggest message you would want to, not Facebook didn't choose to do that in every public school, urban school system in the country. What's the biggest message you would want to take away, people to take away from this book?
I would want people to realize that the real, when they talk about transforming education, it's not something that you can do from the top, and it's not something that outsiders can do to a city. It has to really come from the bottom up, because education, the real magic of education happens in classrooms between teachers and students every day. Every school is different. Every school needs a different approach. And it has to be something that, where the resources get to the school building and principals and teachers are able to use them for the benefits of the kids that are in front of them.
One more thing, and I'm not providing commentary because in public broadcasting it's not the role of a host or anchor to do that, but I remember watching the Oprah segment with Governor Christie, but frankly more importantly Cory Booker, when you said Mark Zuckerberg saw him as some sort of urban Superman. There is no such thing as an urban Superman in elected office. There is no one person, man or woman, who can do that alone, and to expect Cory Booker to do that just seemed incredibly unrealistic.
Yes.
Not to mention, well, someone would use some other words for that, and it has nothing to do with Cory Booker. No one person could do that.
Right. No, I remember that Clement Price said that... The late, great Clement Price.
Who's featured in this book extensively. Go ahead,
yes.
I'm sorry.
But I remember when Oprah Winfrey introduced Cory Booker that day as the rock star mayor of of Newark, New Jersey. Clement Price said, "There's no such thing as a rock star mayor. You can be a rock star, you can be a mayor, you can't be both." And I think that was a misconception from the beginning.
One of the many things that the late, extraordinary Clement Price said that made a lot of sense. It's just a lot of people just trying to work every day to make this city that some call Brick City better every day. Dale Russakoff, the book is called The Prize, and I encourage everyone to read it and learn from it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, Health Republic Insurance of New Jersey, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, Cohn Resnick, the Fidelco Group, the Russell Berry Foundation, and by ADP, transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.